All right, we're trying something new today. We are going live for the first time here on Locked on Auburn.
Let's do
And
it.
of course, I'm Zach Blackerby, Charlie 5, Auburn message board legend with us as well. And this has been one of the craziest days I can ever recall, Charlie 5. This has been I don't know. It's been a lot of firsts for me. It's been a lot of firsts as far as what all exactly is happening with Bryan Harsin, what all is happening with the fan base, and now players are standing up for Harsin. Some former players are um, attacking him. So
Right.
I mean, tons of different things happening. For those in the chat, yes, we are live. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please let us know. But what right now, what's your reaction to all of this, Charlie 5?
Um, Gosh, it's kind of crazy how intense it's gotten in the last 12 plus 12 to 18 hours. I kind of talked about it in the last show that we had. And I mentioned that there's people that are very, unhappy with some of the things, not necessarily just the 6-7 record,
Right.
but the things that have happened since then with coaches leaving, players leaving, some recruiting stuff that hasn't happened or doesn't look like it's really on the right pathway to happen. So it's and then the player part of it is crazy. There's current players that are for, there's current players that are against, that not just former players, there's current players that are not talking very highly as well. Some guys that I think it carries a lot of weight, and it's just the fever. I said fever pitch, I believe, the other day, and that is very accurate as far as the tensions and things that are going on right now, and it blows me away.
Yeah, it is. It's been crazy. And so, I mean, a lot of people in the comments right now, and we've seen this in Locked on Auburn Discord, which if you are not in the Discord, somebody who is, please drop that in the YouTube chat because it's the place to be when things
Yes.
are burning down. It's a blast. I haven't gotten any work done all day today because of it. But a lot of people blaming the quote unquote powers that be, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of been a storyline for since before Harsin got here, when the big push was to hire Kevin Steele
Yes.
from DC to the head coach. That's kind of reports all over the place of that's who the powers that be, a lot of the money that influences decisions at Auburn wanted him. And you're now hearing similar things that these are the same people that now want Harsin out 14 months later. 14 months later.
Yeah. It's that's exactly correct. I mean, that's dead on correct. Uh you need it's sort of like those guys, kind of, it comes with a double-edged sword. You have to have them for stuff like Gus's buyout, for facilities. You have to have them for support, but at the same time, that comes with you know a lot of I guess influence. So um, it sort of, to me, seems like, and I'm not saying this is good or bad.
Okay.
I lean towards bad. It seems like that a lot of these guys were not necessarily on board with the Harsin hire to begin with, which is a lot of their own fault because they couldn't get on the same page in the coaching search, and they're sort of looking for an opportunity. I guess looking for any possible opportunity they can to make a move. And I don't know if they've got what they have to be able to make a move. I don't think they're going to pay 18 to $20 million to buy him out. I just don't
14
see
months
that.
after they paid over 20
That's not
million.
that's just not feasible, especially when you record an $8 or $9 million loss this last year. So it's sort of scary to see if the only other route to go is the obviously either make it so uncomfortable that he resigns or go for the 4 calls route, which is very scary. That's scary for now and anyone, in the future, I would imagine, unless they already have someone in mind. But that's just speculation. Nothing else behind that.
What are the odds in your mind that this is all just ridiculous rumor, ridiculous social media hype, and nothing?
Which part?
I guess just the big picture whole thing.
That are you talking about?
Like the Harsin's like on his way out kind of thing.
Oh, I don't think it's social. I don't think it's rumor at all. I mean, Jay Googe. I mean, for those that didn't see it, just popped up ESPN alert. We're sorting through what's true and what's not right now, and talking about Harsin's future. And he also said that I believe Googe asked Harsin's on vacation right now, which is also brutal.
That's a tough look, man.
Yeah.
Not that he's necessarily doing anything quote unquote wrong, but it's just a really bad look.
Yeah. So he said, could you come home from vacation? I think Harsin said no. I think that was on the ESPN alert as well. So yeah, it's crazy. It's a little crazy right now. I think there's definitely substance to what's going on. I don't think it's all rumor. Now, as far as the rumors about the, whatever, I'm not even touching that. I'm not going there.
No, whatsoever. Absolutely not. But we're looking at it from, 1,000 feet up looking down. It's kind of the perspective I want to have on this. All right. I think I can highlight. Yeah, cool. All right. PM asked to both of us, what's the most shocking thing you've learned in the last 24 hours? And I'm going to start with the players. This isn't really something that I've learned, but it's something I think was confirmed a little bit that I've heard through the Harsin tenure, it was a lot harder for players to get in contact with him. And so I didn't know if that was I knew it was different from the Gus Malzahn administration, but I didn't fully know what the norm was in college football. I didn't know which one of those was more normal, more accepted. But Smoke Monday's comments today, he's obviously in the anti-Harsin crowd, it seems, based on his response to Lee Hunter's post, talking about how he doubted that Harsin even knew his parents' names. And we don't know how much of exaggeration that is, but that was the thing that stood out to me the most with all the players saying something.
Yeah. I could go a lot of different directions with that. Especially a couple of the former anti guys, but yeah, the view of, I think the most shocking thing that I've learned is how drastically, and when I say shockingly, it doesn't necessarily mean this is a bad thing, but how drastically different it went from one coach to the other. I'm shocked at how much actual support there was for the previous regime, and how I think there's a lot of, from a player standpoint, how much those guys really respected him. You see a lot of dudes, like I said, going to UCF or just, I don't know, it just seems like there wasn't a whole lot of, I'm just shocked at the lack of, I don't want to call it buy-in, but just the friction there. And that, I mean, it's crazy. You hear rumors, but to see it all out in the open, to start an Instagram live and just start, going back and forth. And, there's a current player that made a very heavy comment that sort of shocked me. And that was from Colby Wooden. Colby Wooden.
What he said?
Who said that there's a reason Bo Nix, and in parentheses says Mr. Auburn, left. So if you when
insinuating that he doesn't work hard, is that
no? I think it was sort of, to me, kind of, because it was along the lines of all the negative. It was along the lines of all the negative to me.
Well, so. I saw Wooden posted a picture of himself working out, and it said something along the lines of
that's his brother. and it just said that was Caleb, I think,
Oh,
and it basically
got
just said I'm just ignoring the noise in general, and I'm working out. In other words, like I don't care what's going on, I'm just going to work out. So, I don't know. The Colby thing was in the Instagram live where they were chatting back and forth, and there were several people, fighting, and there
got
were
it.
several people. I mean, it's just
I saw people
tough.
tweeting about Zacoby's Instagram live. I didn't get to tune into it. Did you see anything that came from that?
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's
All right.
that's the
That's
one I'm talking about. Yeah,
got it.
it was Smoke, Kobe Hudson, Zacoby McClain, which he obviously was not very much of a supporter, and that carries weight because he busted his tail and he worked hard. He was what seemingly a Harsin type player.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, man. It's my question is, let's say everything that's been brought up is BS. How do you come back? Like, how are you able to come back from this? Um, that's tough. I mean, that's the part that I'm really struggling with, and not saying that he's done anything necessarily to deserve it. I'm just asking, like, how do you come back from it
I don't
once
know.
once the wheels have turned? Like, what happened? How do you come back? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, there is so much damage that has been done.
Yeah,
Both, I think, personal relationships. I think, as far as faith in the program, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know how quick you can bounce back. Even if
yeah.
everything that has been said is false, which I guess we kind of hope. I think as Auburn people, we should hope that everything that is said is false. But I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know how you come back from it. I have no idea.
I would say if anybody could come back, the only one person that literally doesn't care what anybody thinks ever. He's literally just, I want to be here. I want to coach ball. The only person that I think that's probably has the, excuse my language, that has the balls to be able to do it and the guts to be able to do it is Bryan Harsin. If I don't think there's many men that would be tough enough to be able to come back from something like this, but he would be one of them.
I'm shocked that he took the interview with ESPN.
Yeah, he did.
That's the thing that is the biggest outlier from like the first 14 months to this. But like, why did he? Was that enough? Because like I think the fact that he hasn't really defended himself is interesting. I don't know exactly what he would do though.
Yeah.
But like, was that statement to ESPN his way of doing that? I'm not sure. But I mean, this is a dude that, I mean, he's pretty closed off. He doesn't give the media anything. And now, according to Smoke and other players, like he's not giving players' parents a whole lot. It's hard to talk to him after games. And so I don't know. But then you see the hard-nosed guys, like friend of the program, Chandler Wooten, who absolutely
Yeah.
adores this guy. Derek Hall is
Derek
defending him.
Hall,
Other
John
friend of the
Samuel
program,
Shanker.
yeah, friend of the program, John Samuel Shanker. And so these are dudes that absolutely adore Bryan Harsin.
Right. Yeah, that's tough.
And it's like,
I mean,
who do you
Derek
look
Hall
at?
to me is one of maybe like one of two or three players that I think are the most. I would say Derek Hall, Zacoby McClain, and Colby Wooden. Those three to me would be some of the more mature, more hard, like no nonsense, hardworking guys on the team, and all of them have sort of different. It's just Derek Hall is very supportive, and that to me speaks heavy. But on the flip side, what Zacoby to me, Zacoby's a 6'2", 200-pound linebacker who put his face in the middle of everybody. Offensive 300-pound offensive guards all play every single game. So
Yeah.
his words weigh a lot too. It's crazy. The parallels are wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, there's been really solid players that have said both things, and so
Yeah.
it's like, but it's a mindset thing, it's a culture thing, and it's a trust thing. And you're seeing guys like Jeff Schmetting, talking about character and things like that. And it's a big thing to question a man's character. I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah.
And his is definitely being questioned. And I don't know
Big time.
exactly. Once again, it's like coming back from all that. you know,
When I say, let's talk about what that means.
coming back from it.
Coming back from it, what that means. To me, that doesn't necessarily mean I have the guts to just come back to work. It's you have from perception, you have a large portion of players and a large portion of fans that may be against you. So how do you unite everybody and then bring kids, make kids want to come play at Auburn? I mean, make kids want to come play at Auburn when it seems like it's so fresh. That's the part to me that is, when I say coming back, that would be the hardest, no matter what side of the fence you're on. Like that would be extremely tough.
Yeah. And like, the boosters are probably not going to be as excited to help out with things moving forward if this is the guy, based on, the reports that they're kind of the ones that don't want him there to begin with. So like that's an interesting thing. From a recruiting standpoint, I mean, Auburn needs all the help it can on the recruiting front. It can't help you there, I wouldn't think. And that's kind of the way out of this mess, is to go out and get a great class in 2023, because there's so many dudes that are talented in the state of Alabama in 2023.
Kill the portal when you can. And I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the solution is talent and roster management. And how do you do that now? I mean, it's almost it makes the job a tough job 1,000 times more tough.
Yeah, right. And the whole like instant gratification of the transfer portal, like Auburn's going to need dudes this summer from the portal.
Yeah.
We talked about this a ton, on the 2 times you appeared on the podcast this week. Auburn's going to need a lot of dudes from the portal, especially at offensive line and wide receiver. And it's like, if it comes down to Auburn and somewhere else looks a lot more stable than the situation that's at Auburn, it's like, I mean, it's just going to be something else that you have to compete with.
Right. You want to hit some questions? You want to hit a few more questions?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm seeing, this is just kind of a big picture trend that I'm seeing. A lot of people are bringing up Gus Malzahn into all of this. Do you think that is fair?
From some of the stuff I've seen, like for example, I mean, I'm just looking at some of the different Gus stuff. I don't. I mean, it depends on what you're asking is about Gus.
Right.
I don't think he really factors into the conversation. Or really there shouldn't be any point of this that is involved with him at all right now.
I'm there with you, and most of his players are gone.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's quite a few. Yeah,
most of them are gone. So, the E2C network, they do a good job over there asking what the silver lining is on all of this, if there is one. I think we will get information as to who's in control at Auburn. If Bryan Harsin sticks up to these guys, I think he's going to win a lot of favor with the fan base.
Yeah.
I think the other side of it is, if the leaders in athletics do not believe that Bryan Harsin's the guy, maybe you don't waste a year in 2023 if he's not the guy. You go into 2022 rather. You go into 2022 with maybe somebody that you do think is the guy. I'm having to reach on that, but if there is a silver lining, those are kind of the 2 things that pop up. Can you think of any more?
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think that a silver lining could be that, at least from some parent, like a parent's view, a guy that's able to stand up to some what is seemingly an insurmountable opponent in people that essentially have tons of influence, and he comes out and it's doesn't waver in his character and what he wants. There's a lot of Derek Halls out there. There's a lot of John Samuel Shankers out there that, maybe this is the guy I want to play. In other words, if there has been some messaging lapses as far as being able to get your recruiting message out there or whatever. This is a mass media way to let the whole world know what your expectations are, where you stand, and you aren't wavering with a vast amount of pressure coming from the other side. So it could be something that, that could be a silver lining. I see a lot of unifies the team. That I could see that, especially if there's more people on more guys on the Harsin side that than the other. It could unite those guys and make them want to play for him even harder. Yeah, I mean, I can see some stuff like that.
So Zach Pouncey asked, how do you come back from something that he never did? I think the point of this conversation is there's a lot of chaos going on, and whether he did it or not, there's still a lot of people hurt in all of this. It's almost gotten to the point where, like, it doesn't matter if everything's true or not. It's about like, how do you win over a fan base again after, and how does he trust a fan base where half of it has gone after him? Like that's the big question. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going to get another silver lining is I don't think it's going to be very long before we have some pretty clear answers.
Yeah, I think we may know today. Do you think that's ridiculous to say?
I don't think so at all.
Yeah.
I think within the next couple hours, we'll probably, I don't think this is anything. I don't think you can drag this out one way or the other very much longer without some big time damage being done to the morale of the team, who clearly is, I mean, I can't even imagine, especially those incoming freshmen that are here for spring, that left high school early to come here. Like, wow, that's tough.
Totally.
And also, you got a new president that was just announced. So he will obviously make the final call on everything. So, I don't think that they were going to do anything really before that was done. So I think it could be, whatever, one way or the other. I think if it goes past today, though, I think he's here to stay and he's not here. And we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. The new president thing is interesting, and I just don't know enough about him to kind of.
I don't either. I don't know.
I don't think there's any way we could possibly know how that's going to factor into it. Keep shooting your questions in chat. We appreciate it. We want to know how the average Auburn fans out there are feeling. And if you're new to tuning in on YouTube, Locked on Auburn is a show that we do every single day. It drops every morning at 7:00 on YouTube. It's earlier than that for audio versions, wherever you get your podcast. But please click that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. If you're an Auburn person, I think you'll really like the content that we have going on there. So do you know if Mike's comment here, Charlie 5, the new president doesn't start till May? He was just approved by the board today. Is that timeline correct as far as you understand it?
I'm not very up to date on presidential university president matters. All I know is he was done today. It kind of may make sense because Googe is the one that's talking, so maybe he doesn't have any say in this. I kind of figured it would be done at least after that was signed, because that was done in an open board of trustees meeting, and then the executive, which would be where any type of decision like this would be after the open board of trustee meeting. So that's why I said the timeline works now that I think the new president's announced. Whatever happens afterward is going to be pretty quick and one way or the other.
Yeah. And somebody who I think will have more information about that, Justin Hopkinson, should be joining us here in a few minutes. So the big name that you're hearing, and this is all rumor, but is tying, Auburn's future potential coach, if this does go south, like a lot of people think, Kevin Steele. Do you if that happens, people are going to freak out, man. People freak out.
That would be my opinion
Yes.
My opinion has changed on
Because you started the hashtag Stop Steele.
I pretty much started the Stop Steele hashtag. And my opinion on a head coach at Auburn has changed a lot because of the NIL era. And I think that I'm not going to go into many details, but I think that if it's utilized correctly, Kevin Steele is not necessarily an end of the world option, but I'm not even entertaining that that's going to take place until something were to happen.
All right, let's bring in Justin Hopkinson now with AuburnLive.com. Hoke, just a normal Friday, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what's for dinner?
This is my lunch.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, appreciate you
kind of left
your lunch break. No, man,
Sure.
tell us your perspective of everything that's gone on today.
Man, I mean, it's been hard to sort of decipher. I mean, I think essentially you have, a group of people, same group of people that wanted to push Kevin Steele into the position last year. But we're talking about boosters. Since Bryan Harsin was hired, they didn't like the hire. They didn't want him. They didn't hire him. They didn't have a say in it. And they don't have really a lot of power with him. And even more so with that, Harsin isn't the type of guy to come in and placate or cater to them. So that's not what they like. So I think that's where it starts. And then you have everything that happened, the season, the different stuff, the coaches, whatever. And then you have these guys looking for a reason to try to, then maybe they hear rumblings about how he is with a player or a coach, and they say, hey, can we dig something up on it? And that's where we're at, to me, is them trying to dig something up on him. And maybe it's true. I don't know. I mean, maybe they have a legit cause that we don't know, that we would all go, oh gosh, yeah, no, that's actually, that's legit.
Yeah.
But as of right now, we haven't heard anything. That we hear a lot of what's sort of risen to the top is maybe he was verbally, abusive to players or coaches or whatever. Again, haven't seen any evidence of that. In fact, I'm sure you guys watched the IG live with some of those guys that were against Harsin, didn't like how he handled things. And even in they're sitting there going off free. And even in their conversations, I didn't hear anything that constitutes calls. They even said they want what's best for him. They just think he should change how he approaches some of the players. So I think that's where we're at. I think the president, Goose said they're trying to decipher fact from fiction. I think that's exactly right. I mean, they just got to do it. They got to do it quickly. Whatever the cause is, whatever the case was, what we reported last night was they were trying to make the case. Whatever that is, it's got to be decided on. I think
so the purpose, Hoke, right, of the purpose of finding cause is to minimize seeing the buyout. Is that is that the angle?
If you find cause, then you don't owe him a buyout, which right now would be $13 million.
We've paid enough of those. We've paid enough of those lately. So.
Obviously, then you can also, if you go to hire a coach, whatever, you can say, hey, we're good as a program. This guy just messed up. And versus going, the program's in shambles. We fired him because he sucks. And that looks a lot. Maybe you can just pawn it on him if you're trying to go hire somebody. I think there's some questions right now. Like, one question I have is, what was the validity of Bryan Harsin's interest in, let's say, Oregon last year?
Or Washington.
I don't know. And so if the answer to that is, well, he kind of was interested in Oregon, that's fine. Doesn't bother me. I mean, I would be, I guess, if you were him and you're from Boise and you want to go back to Oregon, I mean, that kind of makes some sense.
Sure.
But if he was, and then he comes out after the Iron Bowl, and then today to ESPN.com, it says, I want to be here. There's no plan B. That kind of calls into question a little bit those comments, like, well, okay, so if you want to be here and there's no plan B, but you were interested in Oregon, so which is it? And so now, what are you saying? Like, are his players and our fans, are they defending him now when in reality he's just playing tough so he can get his buyout? I mean, it calls that into question a little bit on what was his interest in Oregon. how do we view his comments today and things like that.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know. I've just never seen anything like this as far as just it appeared to come from nowhere, Hoke. Did you see anything like this coming?
Or let me ask a quick question. Do you feel like if the Derek Mason thing would not have ended the way it ended, that this would be talked about right now? Do you think it had a big effect on a lot of a bigger effect? I'm under the impression that he was willing to leave before Oklahoma State agreed to his buyout. He was willing to leave without even having a job. So I was just curious if you felt like that whole situation, would we be talking about this right now if the whole Derek Mason thing hadn't gone down kind of like it was, and maybe opened some eyes or made the wrong people mad or more mad, or just curious?
Yeah, that's hard to answer because I don't know that it was one thing,
Yeah.
I mean, if Mason leaves, but nothing happens, if Austin Davis was a great hire, is it Austin Davis that pushed it over the top? It's hard to add. I think it's just a lot of things. I think it was just a bunch of stuff that kept adding up. Players leaving, Mason leaving, Davis thing. I think, and look, when these players were leaving, these coaches were leaving, being talked to, hey, what's going on? What was your experience like? Da, da, da. And so maybe they just gathered enough, and maybe Mason and Davis, maybe those were things that just took it over the top. But it's hard to tell about one thing. I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's been a lot of things.
Hoke, do you think if they go through with this and Harsin is let go from Auburn, will they already have another name ready to go? How quick do you think that turnaround would? They'd have to have somebody in mind, right?
Yeah. Although I would absolutely, they got somebody in mind. How quickly does that happen? That's hard to say, just because, like, what's the process? What's the what do they actually have to do to cut ties with Harsin, and then what do they have to do to set up being able to hire somebody? How quickly can that happen? I don't know, but yeah, they definitely have. I definitely believe they've got people in mind. I don't think you have to go further than just thinking about who they wanted a year ago. And so, yeah, this isn't a situation where they're just going to get rid of Harsin, let's say, and then wake up the next morning and go, all right, now what?
What is it like? So you mentioned possibly somebody that they wanted a year ago. Assuming we're thinking the same person, that guy has a job right now.
Kevin Steele.
Okay, we could say it. So Kevin Steele, as far as has he signed? I know he was at Maryland for 2 seconds, then he popped over to Miami. But is that something like, would Auburn have to pay a buyout to get him out of that contract?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't even looked into his. I mean, maybe maybe Miami says just go. I don't know. I mean, it's probably nothing crazy. That's an interesting one, because I also don't know his status in the state of Alabama in terms of retirement.
Not quite there. He's got a couple of years.
So if he's got a couple of years, that's interesting. So if it's 1 year, then it kind of would make a lot of sense, right? Like, hey, come back, get your 1 year, coach us, let's get on stable ground, and then we'll go hire a coach and you can retire. If it's a couple of years, then that's different, because now we're talking about hiring Kevin Steele legit for years. So that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously the fans did not like that a year ago. I'm not sure how that's going to work this time. I mean, the fans very much turned against that idea a year ago. So, if they push that through this time, boy, you talk about an upset fan base. The other name would be Hugh Freeze, who would absolutely come. I mean, February, March, doesn't matter. He's got a buyout that I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's manageable. Now he makes, Liberty just gave him a raise, I think, to about $4 million a year. So
wow,
Auburn could. I don't think Auburn. It's not like Auburn could just get him and pay him 2.5. I think they'd have to pay him. But that's another one that they could go get now. That, all things being considered, in these circumstances, if you landed somebody like Hugh Freeze and his staff, that'd be pretty good. But then there's also some issues with his background. Does the SEC have to sign off on him? Do they have to approve him coming back in the league? There's some issues there too. But those are two names that come to mind as probably people that have already been thought about, if not talked to. Hey, if this happens, will you come?
Something we were talking about before you hopped on, Hope, was the optics of all of this. And, he doesn't sign anyone on signing day, which we can all kind of discuss, how big of a deal is that actually. But then he's on vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, that can't look good, right? Or is that just kind of, something I like about Harsin is he does not care what other people think. He's going to do something and he's going to put his head down and he's going to do it. I think that's his best quality. Now it sounds like, maybe it kind of hurt him with connecting with some of the players. That seems to have been something that has come from like social media posts throughout the day today. Is it exaggeration? I don't know. But optically, Hoke, I mean, how do you recover from this if nothing happens?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think from a fan perspective, I think that if he came out of this on the other side, what's funny is I actually think he would be in a stronger position with the fans. I easily could see a large part of the fan base rallying around him and being like, you know what? I'm not sure that's how it should have happened. And okay, who cares if he's a tough coach? We need a tough coach. And I could easily see him actually garnering more support from just everyday fans after this happens. I think the bigger question is from the boosters and those people involved. The bigger question is, how do you recruit? How do you go get NIL up and running? Okay, exactly. When the people with money want you out, not everybody with money, but the main guys, those guys do. How do you garner support from businesses or whatever? Like, how do you get that going if a lot of people with money don't want you there? I think that's a big question is the recruiting side. I think you'd have more support from the fan side, but when you go and say, hey, I need resources for this, or hey, we're after this kid, let's get this going. Is he going to have that kind of support from those type of people? That's a major question.
What do you think the timeline for all of this is? Like, do we know today? Do we know this weekend? If nothing happens by Monday, is Harsin staying? What do you think is a reasonable? We're all in new waters here. This is new for all of us, so it's impossible for you to answer this question with 100% confidence. But I mean, what do you think realistic timeline is here?
I mean, today or tomorrow. I mean, it seems like it's got to. I mean, there's discussions happening today when Jay Googe literally comes out and says we're trying to figure out fact from fiction. I think they're trying to figure it out right now, and so the question is, where are they at in the process? If they decide that there's some fact there, then what? How long does that process take? Is it just okay? Do they got to get litigation involved? And so there are things here that could trip it up and make this a drawn out process, because Auburn, if they think there's cause, they're going to have to make the right decision. And that can't just, that obviously has to be done right. And so I'd have to think it happens fairly quickly, though. It can't drag on. Granted, if it's ever going to happen, maybe this is signing day just happened. So if there's ever a time where it could drag on, I guess it would be now, but it's just so bad for your program. I can't see this going on past middle of next week. Let's say worst case scenario.
Does Harsin have to come back in town? Does he have to be done with his vacation before they do this, or will they just like call and tell him?
It's a good
if
question.
they choose this, obviously.
Well, what's funny
or
is
they call and like make him like, no. Do we know where he is, by the way? Do we know where he's vacationing?
I think he's in Mexico.
That's nice.
That's where I would be. Well, what's funny about you bringing that up and is I've had a couple of people tell me today, and I didn't run with it, so I can properly give it context here where I can't writing it. In other words, I'm not reporting it. I'm just relaying this. There's some thought that they had reached out to Harsin and asked him to come back, and he said, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I thought Jay Gooch actually said that.
Oh, did he?
Recently. I think he did recently.
Well, I'm talking about today. They said, hey, we need you to come back. He said, no, I'm on vacation. I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I think you're right on that.
So, which wouldn't surprise us totally. And if Harsin thinks he hasn't done anything wrong, he's like, you don't need me. If you got something, cool. If not, like I'm. So no, I don't know that he.
Who he is too, right? I mean,
totally.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely. So
I mean that in a good way, actually. I mean that as far as like he's confident with what he's done. If you actually like, if you're going to do something, do it. I don't need to be there. Like I think that's endearing.
Yeah. So it's just going to be, I think the support thing that's behind the scenes and resources and stuff. That's to me the most interesting thing if he does stay. I've put a few pieces up. I talked to TD Moultrie and Chandler Wooten. I put their stuff up on our site because I just thought they had voices that I respect it and should be heard. And we also put quotes up from Lee Hunter and Smoke Monday and what they had to say. So we've definitely put both sides up. But Chandler Wooten's a guy that, man, I have a lot of respect for him. And as a person and a player and just dealing with him in the media, that's somebody that I would look to as there's a reason he's team captain.
Sure.
And man, you go read what he had to say on our site. He talks about players being soft. He talks about players being babysat last year and how it's a different culture change. Hey, we're not babysitting anymore. He was pretty straight up about, like, I didn't see disrespect. I mean, if you can't cut it, if you're not going to do the job, he's going to replace you. And really a lot of, like, the culture shifted where, hey, if you're no more trying to get you to come on time to meetings, no more, hey, trying to get you to go to class on time, like, do it or don't. If you don't, you're going to get called out and treated like an adult and things like that. So, and he said, look, if you're doing that, then yeah, you're probably going to feel like you were treated poorly. I think there's a lot of credibility to that when you look at some of the players that came back, some of the players that left. I mean, look at where Lee Hunter and Kobe Hudson went. They went back to their old coach.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot going on here, but the player aspect of it in terms of how he treated players, that I don't really, unless there's a specific incident that we don't know about.
Yeah.
This kind of general sense that he treats player, I'm not buying that. Is he tough on him? Probably, yeah. Is he probably a jerk to him? Yeah. When guys like Chandler Wooten and Derek Hall, who I have a lot of respect for, John Samuel Shanker, when you're talking about quality individuals. And I'm not saying about the other guys. I'm talking about those dudes are quality people, period.
Totally.
Yep. Heavy.
That carries weight with me.
Yep. I said the same thing. Derek Hall speaking out is heavy. That's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
That hits heavy.
Chandler saying, we didn't need a friend. We needed a coach. I mean, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Chandler's, got a kid. He talked about, hey, they told me I could bring my kid was up at practice all the time. They welcomed it. They welcomed my family in there. Literally talked about having text messages with Harsin where they would just be like, hey man, how's your day going? Or, hey, love you, man. When you hear that and you're like, and then I'm supposed to believe that, but then to other people, Harsin was just this cold, robotic, monster that it just doesn't quite add up. I think it's more of Harsin's a certain way. And if you're sort of that way, you get him. If you're not, then you don't. And there's not a lot of middle ground.
Yeah. One of the silver linings, we talked about silver linings early, is that if you can get a lot of, they don't necessarily have to be at the talent level, but a lot of guys like Derek Hall and Chandler Wooten mindset and their respect for hard work and discipline. If you can get a team full of those guys, and maybe that's what he's doing. He's trying to get a team full of those type guys as fast as possible. And that's why we're seeing, 18 plus guys go into the portal. If you can get those guys on the team as fast as possible, what type of atmosphere in that locker room can you create? Like what, guys that are all in unison wanting to do the same thing, trying to achieve the same goal. That is something that may be the whole plan. That may be the plan all along. So if you hear rumors about him being cold or him being whatever, it's because he's already seen that you don't have the traits that he's looking for. And I don't necessarily know that's a bad thing. It's a huge difference. It's a big difference than what we're used to or what they're used to. And I think that's pretty much all it is as far as the talk that you hear back and forth from players.
And I see somebody asking about an OC. I don't know. I don't know that. There was some thought that he may promote Eric Keesall. So if he potentially could just do that, and this wouldn't be that difficult if he does stay, just go hire a quarterback.
They get along, they have a good relationship. So maybe it makes that easier.
Maybe that's the best thing to do. I think another thing to keep in mind, man, there's a lot of, again, I feel like I have to say this every time because it's important. If there's a specific incident, we're not talking about that. We don't know exactly what the cause is. And if there's a specific incident or a pattern or something that we don't know, that we might go, that's not good. But until we see that, we're going off of kind of a general sense of what he's like or not like. I think there's also a change in the culture with the transfer portal and NIL. I don't think you can look at the number of players transferring, especially after year one, and judge it the way you would have 5 years ago. It's not the same
Sure.
thing. You can't look
not.
at it and go, look at all these guys that left. Well, yeah, it's a new, like this is a completely new world. You're going to have this every year. Every year, it doesn't matter. You're going to have the guys that left didn't play. They want to play, period. So when people bring up the number of people that left, I don't think that's a valid. Like that doesn't hold a lot of water with me. And it also makes me wonder, what's the mentality of a lot of these guys when you have NIL and you have the transfer portal and you have the availability to just bolt if you want to, or maybe you think you should get. Does your mentality change in how you accept coaching, especially somebody like Bryan Harsin? Like, are you thinking, like, if you didn't have a choice, what would you do? You'd adjust to Bryan Harsin, you'd figure it out, and you'd play. Well, if I have a choice, then I'm probably just going to go, this dude's a joke, man. I'll just sort of make it through and then I'll leave. It totally changes to me your mindset, where if you have no choice, you figure it out and you change, and then maybe a couple guys leave, and then you don't have these stories of Kobe Hudson saying he doesn't understand me. Maybe if he didn't have the choice to leave, they work it out, and you hear a story 2 years later, and Kobe says, we worked through it. Like there's just a lot going on here that I think changes how we should view transfers, how we should view these comments and things like that.
But in the same vein of the transfers, shouldn't you see around the same amount coming back in? Maybe not 1-for-1 ratio. And I know the total scholarship count matters and things like that. But before, as far as like transfers that are going to be able to participate in spring, it's what, 4? Isn't that right? The 2 Oregon kids and the 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, it's a totally a fair point. And I mean, part of the issue is they felt like they needed to go get. There's also a little bit of imbalance, right? So they need offensive linemen. Well, none of those guys left. So, okay. It's like they need receivers. Now they got to figure that out. But so like if they need linemen but none of them leave, but instead guys leave that it's like, so just some of that plays into it. But yeah, I mean, they missed out on some guys because they've got some depth. But yeah, you'd like to see, obviously, when 18, I think they're at, when 18 leave, you probably need a good number of those coming back in. And you wonder about the spring too. What does it look like? Is the transfer portal, what does it look like after spring in terms of the quality of the players that you can get? I don't know yet. Yeah. I just think there's a lot to figure out there. There's no question about it. And look, there's plenty of negatives about Harsin in his first year. Plenty of stuff we can point out and go, that's not a great sign. Should have recruited better. That's not great. A lot of that stuff, totally. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about, should he be fired with cause? Then nothing I've heard, is registers to that. No, not at all.
Right. What about the timing of everything? As Edric points out, none of this came up until after signing day. Do you think that was by design? Do you think it's a crazy coincidence? Hoke, you talked about it at auburnlive.com. By the way, if you were not subscribed to auburnlive.com, you are missing out on a ton of great Auburn content. So go to auburnlive.com and you get great reports from guys like Hoke, as well as Jeffrey Lee and Coach Cole Pinkston and others. So be sure to go and check that out. Anything else to add to that real quick, Hoke, before we move forward?
No, it sounded good, man. I'll Venmo you.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, that was one of the things you talked about with the timing of the new president coming in. Is all of this just a crazy line of coincidences, or do you think there's something to it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, there's been rumblings for weeks, so it's not like in 3 days it happened, but why did this sort of come to a head? I would imagine it came to a head now because of the Board of Trustees meeting. I mean, I think the plan was always probably rumblings, and then, hey, when we get together, we're gonna make a decision. So I feel like that's a logical way to look at it. They got together last night. Hey, look, when we get together, we're gonna make the case and we're gonna decide that weekend. And so it just so happens that it's right after signing day, and the new president's like, I'm here, and day one is this. So I think it has more to do with the trustees, kind of the scheduled meeting that was already on the books, and getting them all together with the president and everybody to make a decision on all this stuff.
Right. Justin, real quick, before we go, I got one more before whatever we change topics. I got one more question. Let's say Harsin survives all this, and I think there's a there's a fairly good chance that happens. If he survives all this, is there anything in particular that you would like to see different? Or do you think if we just continue going on his status quo, the path that he's going, it has Auburn going in the right direction? Or is there anything in particular that you would like to see different moving forward?
Well, I think from the recruiting side, there's some things that got to be figured out. I think they tried to address some of that by beefing up personnel. I mean, so I think clearly getting their hands around recruiting, the transfer portal, evaluating players. Clearly there was something lacking, I feel like. So they beefed up personnel there. So let's see if that improves. And then, look, I think past that, when we talk about Harsin and the kind of coach he is and some of the stuff that we've been talking about, is it fireable offense? No, it's not. But I think there is something to be said if he does survive about maybe looking in the mirror a little bit and saying, okay, like maybe I can do something different. Harsin needs to be him, but you're not always going to have a staff full of guys that you've spent a bunch of years with. So
yeah,
you can't just hire a guy, y'all don't get along, my way or the highway, you're fired. I mean, there's got to be maybe a little more give with him and trying to make some of this stuff work. So I would say maybe there's something he can do there. I mean, because look, if he does stay, think about the team. I mean, I would imagine there's probably players that stayed on that team that might feel like some of the guys that left, they just stayed for some reason. It's not like everybody stayed because they love him. I mean, a lot of them probably have no problem with him, but there's probably some guys there that have issues. So, that's going to have to be addressed and figured out and make sure there's no dissension on the team and things like that. So I would say outside of kind of building up the recruiting side of it and figuring out how to compete there, then if he does stay, he's going to have to do some rebuilding on the team. I mean, he's just going to have to, with his coaches and staff, he's going to have to say, either he's going to go, hey, nothing's changing. We're trying to win. The culture is what it is. I'm not changing anything. Or is there something that he sees where he could say, maybe I could reach out like an olive branch a little bit to some of these guys to make sure that we move forward in the right direction kind of deal.
Sure. Is there any relationship maintenance that's going to need to be done as far as like losing Austin Davis? Saw a few people talking about like how Calzada was upset with Austin Davis leaving, and there was a few other ones, and like we didn't even get a chance to really break that stuff down until because this kind of hopped up on us. So I mean, there's a lot of relationship related things that he's going to have to work on, both with I mean, he's going to have to sit the team down, you would think, and talk about what's going on this week. Are they owed certain things as players? I kind of feel like they are.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of bridge building that's going to have to be done, I think. You mentioned some of those quarterbacks. Obviously, you have a couple of quarterbacks that came in after Austin Davis was hired that transferred in. So yeah, there's definitely going to have to be some bridge building. Because who knows, maybe there's players on this team that didn't quite know the extent of how some of these other guys felt. And maybe they're hearing some of this for the first time and they're wondering what the heck happened. So yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be, I think, very much a bridge. But that's funny, is I talked to Chandler about that, and he kind of mentioned about, hey, COVID was still going on last year. He's like, there's a bunch of team activities, especially early on in Harsin, like spring, that we didn't get to do. That got canceled, or we weren't allowed to be together, or we couldn't. He was like, normal stuff that you would have done in Harsin's first year, spring, summer. He goes, we didn't do a lot of it because COVID. So he's like, there's a lot of team building stuff that they tried that they couldn't do that they would have done under normal circumstances, and that probably didn't help. When you hear Smoke Monday talk about, he probably doesn't know my parents' name, whatever. Chandler was like, and I guess maybe that's where he gets it from. I guess maybe we didn't have as many events, or maybe we didn't have as many functions, and so it didn't allow for as many opportunities. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that goes into what these kids are saying, and a lot of different perspective, I think, that affects things that we don't always think about.
Charlie 5, do you see this question to you from Rusty? Do you want to answer that one?
Let me see it.
There it is.
Shoot it up there.
Do you remember that message?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to elaborate on that until it's over.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I will though, but it would need to be once that's over, we'll talk. So, but yeah, I don't think it would, with everything that could be that may be happening. I don't think this is a situation where I'm just going to stop talking. I don't want to go any further than that yet.
Hey, Hope, thank you for coming by for a few minutes, man. Really appreciate it. I know you're extremely busy today, so giving us some time means a ton.
No problem, man. Just want to say hi.
How can folks sign up and subscribe to everything?
Yeah, auburnlive.com. A few of the stories today I just made free with everything going on. So just hop over there, man, and
you're so nice.
Be a part of it, man. We'd love to have you. I think our board is a pretty nice board overall, nothing too crazy. So we kind of appreciate everybody being a part of it. That'd be awesome.
Cool. Awesome, Hope. Thank you so much for your time, brother. Yep.
All right.
Good luck. Good luck with the rest of the weekend. Any other angles, Charlie 5, that we have not hit this from that we need to? And just real quick, guys, if you have any more questions, put them in the chat before we wrap things up. But Charlie 5, any other things that we haven't talked about yet? I mean, there's a million different ways to cover this thing.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think I don't think that the culture thing is bad. I don't think the culture thing that we're preaching, that we're trying to achieve, there's so much to like about that. There's so much to like about the no nonsense. There's so much to like about the business aspect of it. Come in, I have expectations. That's stuff that's all that's great. All that's great. And I think Auburn probably needs a good bit of that, but I think there's a lot more than just the Auburn. The Auburn head coaching job is much more than I just come to the facility and coach football. It's almost like a political position.
Right.
And I think the faster that Bryan can, or Coach Harsin can grasp that and work that angle, the better things can be. And the quicker that hopefully if he is the guy moving forward, hopefully those fences can be mended. And it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's probably going to take him stepping a little bit out of his comfort zone. But I think, like I said, in the end, it's better if this guy figures it out. It's better if this guy succeeds. So I'm just going to that's just basically the biggest part of this whole thing that I think needs to be understood is that there's a lot of value in this, what Bryan Harsin brings to the table.
Right. Zachary, I think right now more folks enjoy watching basketball, but as a fan base, I mean, you see when football comes up, how quick the fan base is all over it. So it's okay to love both. It's okay to love both. Russell with an outstanding point. Charlie 5. I shaved my mustache off and everything went crazy.
Russell has his finger on the pulse.
He gets it.
He gets it. He gets it.
All right, let's see. I think we're gonna leave everything else alone. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, if you are not subscribed to Locked on Auburn, whether on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, you're already on the YouTube page, click that subscribe button. It helps out the show a ton. But yeah, this live got more traction than I thought it would. And so we will do more of these in the future. So hopefully everyone does okay with the crazy weather throughout the country this weekend. Charlie 5, thanks for swinging by, brother.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. This was awesome. Live is fun.
Hey, if you like golf, tune in to where, Charlie 5?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, anywhere you get a podcast, the Dad Bod Golf Pod.
Yeah, be sure to check that out as well. And I will put the link to the Locked on Auburn Discord in the chat one more time. It's like constantly on fire, and it's hilarious with Auburn fans. So be sure to check that out. But guys, thank you so much. And we will do this again